Imagine it. You lean your hand against it and press. What happens? The wall pushes back. That's what it feels like. That's what we're taught. Newton's third law, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Clean, symmetrical, done. Except that explanation hides something. Because when you push a wall, nothing is actually pushing back the way you think. There are no microscopic fists meeting in the middle, no atoms colliding like billiard balls, no little springs compressing at the surface. And once you zoom in far enough, the idea of push itself starts to fall apart. The story we're told in school, resistance is simple. You apply a force. The object applies an equal force in the opposite direction, like two hands pressing against each other. It sounds mechanical, intuitive. But ask a dangerous question: how does the wall know to push back? Not metaphorically, physically. What mechanism detects your push and responds? There's no brain inside the drywall. No signal saying pressure detected, initiate counterforce. So what's actually happening? The surface is not a surface. Let's zoom in. Closer, past paint, past molecules, down to atoms. You expect to find a solid barrier, tiny particles packed tightly together. But atoms are mostly empty space. If the atom were the size of a football stadium, the nucleus would be a grain of sand at the center. Everything else, vast emptiness. So when you push the wall, your atoms approach something that is almost entirely empty. Why don't you pass straight through? Nothing is colliding. This is where intuition breaks. Your atoms never actually touch the wall's atoms. No nuclei crash. No surfaces meet. Instead, the outer electrons of your atoms approach the outer electrons of the wall's atoms. And electrons obey a rule that changes everything. The Pauli exclusion principle. No two identical fermions can occupy the same quantum state in the same system. Electrons are fermions. That means as they get too close, the number of allowed states collapses. And when allowed states disappear, the system's energy rises sharply. Not because something pushes, but because certain configurations are forbidden. The wall doesn't push back. The system becomes unstable. Here's the shift. The wall doesn't push back. The combined system of your hand and the wall enters a configuration that is energetically expensive. Your muscles try to move forward, but forward motion would require electrons to share forbidden states. So the energy cost skyrockets. Your nerves interpret that rapid energy increase as pressure. Your brain interprets that pressure as resistance. But no object is actively pushing. The system is simply refusing to occupy an illegal arrangement. Resistance is not reaction. Newton's third law is still correct, but it's a description, not a mechanism. When two systems interact, momentum must balance. That symmetry shows up as equal and opposite forces in equations. But underneath those equations, what's really happening is constraints, limits, boundaries and possibility space. The reaction force is not an active response. It's the mathematical reflection of a forbidden configuration. Springs, steel, and skin. Same rule, push a spring. It compresses. Push steel. It barely moves. Push your skin. It deforms slightly. Different materials respond differently. But the underlying reason is the same. You are rearranging atomic positions. Each rearrangement has an energy cost. If the cost is low, the material yields. If the cost is high, it resists. The stiffness of a material is not about how solid it is. It's about how steep its energy landscape becomes when you try to change its structure. Hardness is just a steep energy cliff. Think of energy like terrain. Some materials have gentle slopes. You can push them into new configurations without much resistance. Others have cliffs. Try to move atoms slightly, and energy spikes immediately. That spike is what you feel as hardness. No pushing required, just an unstable configuration that cannot continue. The universe doesn't fight you. This is the part that feels almost philosophical, but it's pure physics. When you push something, the universe is not fighting back. There is no opposition. There is no counteraction. There is only this. The configuration you are attempting cannot exist at low energy, so it doesn't persist. Motion stops. Even the strongest materials follow this rule. Diamond feels unyielding. Concrete feels solid. But at high enough pressures, even these materials compress. At even higher pressures, inside stars, atoms themselves collapse into new forms. Nothing is absolutely resistant. Every material has a point where the energy barrier can be overcome. Resistance isn't permanent. It's conditional. Why this changes how you see force. If objects don't push back, if resistance is just rising energy, if surfaces never truly meet, then force stops being a push. It becomes a measure of how quickly energy increases with displacement. Force is slope, not shove. That's a very different picture. The question that should linger. So here's the question to carry into the next part. If objects resist being pushed not because they push back, but because certain configurations are forbidden, then what does that say about all forces? Gravity, magnetism, friction. Are they pushing at all? Or are they all just manifestations of the same deeper rule? In the next part, we'll take this further into why motion changes, why acceleration exists, and why the universe might not be built from forces at all, but from constraints. That's where resistance stops feeling mechanical and starts feeling inevitable. Let's bring this down to something ordinary. You're at the gym, you load a barbell, you grip it, you try to lift, it resists you. Your brain says that weight is pushing down. Physics class says gravity pulls it down and the bar pushes back with an equal force. Simple, but now you know something deeper. The bar isn't pushing back the way you think, and gravity isn't reaching down with invisible fingers. So what's really happening? The illusion of the counterpunch. When you push on something, a wall, a steering wheel, a weight rack, it feels like the object responds, as if it detects your effort and pushes back. But objects don't detect. They don't respond. They don't decide. There's no mechanism inside a brick that says pressure detected. Initiate equal reaction. Instead, what's happening is this. You're trying to move atoms into positions that cost more energy than they're allowed to occupy comfortably. That's it. The pushback isn't a response, it's a boundary. America runs on resistance. Here in the US, we're obsessed with force. We measure horsepower, we brag about torque. We build bigger engines. We lift heavier weights. The language of strength is everywhere. But underneath every engine, every press, every construction site, the same rule applies. Nothing resists because it wants to. It resists because the configuration you're demanding cannot exist without paying an enormous energy price. Steel beams hold up skyscrapers not because they fight gravity. They hold because bending them would require rearranging trillions of atomic bonds into unstable configurations. The energy barrier is steep, so the structure stands. The real mechanism, energy gradients. Here's the clean version. When you push an object, you attempt to displace atoms. That displacement changes their arrangement. If the new arrangement has higher energy, the system naturally evolves toward lower energy instead. That evolution shows up in equations as a force, but nothing is being shoved. The system is sliding downhill in energy space. You are trying to push it uphill. The slope is what you feel. Even hard objects are just steep landscapes. Think about a pickup truck. Solid frame, heavy body, feels immovable, but at the atomic level, it's mostly empty space. The rigidity comes from the way electrons share and arrange themselves in metallic bonds. Try to compress that structure and the allowed quantum states narrow. Energy skyrockets. That sharp increase is what you interpret as strength. The truck isn't solid, it's stable. That's different. Gravity isn't pulling either. Now let's zoom out. When you stand on the ground, you feel weight. It feels like Earth is pulling you down. But in Einstein's picture, gravity isn't a force at all. Space-time is curved. You're moving along the straightest path available in that curved geometry. The ground stops you. And when it does, you feel pressure. But again, the ground isn't pushing because it's reacting. It's preventing your atoms from occupying forbidden configurations. Weight is not a downward pull. It's resistance to geometric motion. The deep pattern beneath every push at this point, the pattern should be clear. Every time you think something is pushing, what's really happening is a configuration becomes unstable. Allowed states disappear. Energy rises sharply. Motion adjusts. That's true for a bat hitting a baseball, a car tire gripping asphalt, a rocket launching from Cape Canaveral, a boxer hitting a punching bag. In every case, resistance comes from energy landscapes, not mechanical counterpunches. Why Newton still works? None of this makes Newton wrong. F equals ma still works. Engineers still calculate forces. Bridges still stand. But Newton's laws are descriptions. They're accounting tools. They don't describe microscopic pushing, they summarize how energy gradients shape motion. It's like using dollars to track transactions. Money isn't the product, it's the measure. Force isn't the mechanism, it's the measurement. The quiet truth about strength. This changes how you think about strength. A material isn't strong because it pushes back harder. It's strong because its energy landscape rises steeply when you try to rearrange it. The steeper the slope, the harder it feels. That's why diamond is hard. That's why rubber is flexible. Different landscapes, same physics. Why nothing ever truly pushes, here's the sentence to carry with you, objects don't resist because they act. They resist because certain configurations cannot exist. That's it. The universe doesn't counterpunch. It enforces constraints. You are always free to try to push further. But the energy cost becomes so high that you stop. Why this makes reality more elegant. At first, this feels like it strips the drama away. No invisible hands, no cosmic wrestling match. But look closer. This is cleaner, more consistent. The same rule explains why you can't walk through walls, why bridges don't collapse, why materials bend but don't shatter instantly, why stars don't implode until they do. All of it traces back to allowed and forbidden states. No intention, no reaction, just structure. The final image. So next time you push something, a door, a barbell, a stubborn lawnmower, imagine this. You are not fighting the object, you are climbing an energy hill. The hill is steep, so you feel resistance. But nothing is pushing against you. You're simply trying to enter a configuration the universe won't permit cheaply. And that quiet refusal, that rising energy cost, is what you've been calling pushback your entire life. Not force, not reaction, just the rules holding steady. And once you see that, even the simplest act, pressing your hand against a wall, feels less like a battle and more like a boundary that has never failed. From your garage in Ohio to a launch pad in Florida to the core of a collapsing star. No counterpunch, just consistency. And that consistency is what makes everything stand.